Welcome back, Dodecadorks. We're the 12-sided guys. We have Sabrina as Sally Super Rich.
Hey, that's me. I got the money.
And me, Paul, as the guy who spent all of his campaign prep time today wandering around Cyrodiil. Whoops! But it's been fun reliving adventures. And you know what? You can relive our adventures by giving 12-sided guys a re-listen. And if that's not your thing, then maybe leave a rating and a review on iTunes and help someone else find us so they can someday re-listen to our podcast after listening to it the first time.
Wish I could go back in time and listen to it for the first time. Would be 10 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of that 80s song. It feels like the first time.
I was thinking about getting a lobotomy.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you want to get some of that extra goodness, then go to Patreon where you can get access to our after show, Your Neighbor's Potatoes, and become a true Patatreon. Somebody put that in the Discord today and it was perfect. I can't remember who it was.
So good.
Oh gosh. Anyway, if you ever left your monastery in search of a stolen magic book, even though you were just an apprentice mage, then this podcast is for you. It's Chorus of the Forsaken, episode 78. Taking the stage with a Gnomish mage.
Hey!
Okay. Do you have any idea what that video game reference is? I don't think anybody's going to know it.
A mage where you have to go out and find a book?
No? Okay.
I just did something like that in my mage guild in Oblivion today.
Oh, there you go. Well, this is actually a game for Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64, Nintendo had like all the RPGs. Like Super Nintendo had like Breath of Fire and Final Fantasy and all these other RPGs. And then Nintendo 64 had 0 RPGs. This was kind of one of their attempts to have sort of an RPG on the Nintendo 64. It was called Quest 64. And you were this little wizard guy going around with a staff. And I didn't know the story until I looked it up. And apparently you're out looking for a book that somebody came and stole from your monastery. Anyway, Quest 64.
That's a pretty bad RPG if you didn't know the story. You're just walking around.
It was a foray into adventure RPGs. So it wasn't turn-based. It was all casting spells, and your spells would get more powerful, but still kind of a role-playing game. Anyway, it was Nintendo 64 had some really great games, but sadly, no good RPGs, in my opinion. So, except for, I'm getting way in the weeds. Ogre Battle 64 is a Ogre Battle. Okay, here's the deal. Do you have an emulator?
No.
Okay. If you have access to an emulator, or if you have a Nintendo 64 or something.
I have a Nintendo 64.
Okay, well, I don't think you're going to be able to find Ogre Battle 64 for the Nintendo 64 because it's going to cost you, I don't know, over $100 probably easily.
Because it's such a good RPG.
It is so good. It is so good. I'm sorry to take time away from our podcast to talk about Ogre Battle 64. It is just so good.
I was always a bigger fan of Ogre Battle 69, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. Well, in case you couldn't tell, today we are spending some time, just me and Sabrina, as we explore the history and the past of our favorite Gnomish mage, Cilvy Everpine.
Cilvy, not super rich Everpine, but
yes,
my parents left that part out of my name.
All right. Well, hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of Cilvy's growing up? Well, let's see. Let's tell us about her family. Tell us where she comes from. Sort of what is Cilvy's heritage?
Yeah. So Cilvy's parents were not super keen to talk about their life beforehand, but basically what she gleaned was that her mother was the daughter of an herbalist who practiced, alchemy magic. And while they weren't necessarily super well off, they were able to provide enough that her mother had made a really good match for her. So when she was, of Cilvy's age, she had planned on, getting married and kind of moving up towards nobility. But the Aeonians kind of started to take power, and it eventually got unstable for her family. So I don't know how much of this is actually been told to Cilvy directly or just kind of inferred.
Okay.
But my idea is that her mom essentially, her mom's brother was a Pahoftma and was a little bit more prolific than she was, and he got caught and was able to run away, but he had to leave the family. And Cilvy's grandma didn't want to leave the area, so she used her herbalism to, do the big one, say goodbye.
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay.
And Cilvy's mom escaped, was able to essentially use her connections to find the hive, and has been there ever since.
Okay. Well, okay, a couple quick questions. With this, a little bit, Cilvy does not know much about her mom's past, right? This is all the stuff that she's over 22 years or whatever. This is what she's managed to gather as far as information about her mom's past. Do you know, or does Cilvy know where her mom lived before coming to the hive?
She doesn't really have much idea. She has a good idea of the landscape and where it is now, because even though they didn't really know where they were, she knew she was part of a forest, but she doesn't necessarily know where in the world. It was important to know the geography and of the land, but
okay,
it was kind of something that wasn't talked about because the hive was supposed to be so hidden, and because so many people left behind their lives. It just wasn't really, the specific cities I don't think were really talked about like that.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So then Cilvy's mom, Fimi, she came to the hive before Cilvy was born. So it sounds like Cilvy's mom came to the hive, and was Cilvy's dad already there?
Yeah, Cilvy's dad actually came shortly after.
Okay.
He was a little bit more forthcoming with his story with Cilvy. His was a little bit less traumatic. He was the sixth son of a minor lord. He had shown some magical aptitude and was essentially sent to live monk prior kind of lifestyle. Eventually, he didn't really find that super satisfying. He had a friend who was a Pahoftma, and with the increasing pressures, they decided to leave the city and eventually go to the hive, and that's where he met Cilvy's mother.
Okay.
So he had a little bit more fond memories of his family, but also wasn't really thinking that they missed him since he was the sixth kid of a noble.
Gotcha. Very good. So Cilvy's mom and dad have two very different histories, and they've come together here in the hive, where then Cilvy is born. I imagine Cilvy growing up would have been surrounded by people who, probably your mom's story is a little bit more common in the hive than your dad's story. Did that do anything to sort of the way that your mom and dad were treated in the hive? Were there cliques and things like that maybe your parents might have fallen into at all?
Yeah, I would definitely say that Thier's, like you said, his story was a little bit more unique, or it was a little bit more casual than a lot of the people who had gone through a lot of pain and tragedy. He always kind of seemed to retain a little bit more of his jovialness and his lightheartedness, I think.
Okay.
And some people really enjoyed that, really found that refreshing in this trying time, have an egg. And other people found it to be a little bit off-putting. So I definitely do think there was a little bit of, I wouldn't say outright derision or schismy cliques, because I think the community was a little bit too small for that. But yeah.
Okay. So then as Cilvy is growing up, there is this community, but obviously probably her first community is going to be her parents, this family that she has. When Cilvy was young, before kind of being thrown into like schooling and all that, was there a preference of her father or her mother? You know, I mean, because what I'm seeing is that maybe her mom might have been a little bit more jaded by life, whereas her dad, you know, being more like lighthearted and more jovial, may have naturally had more of a draw for Cilvy. But did Cilvy feel more of a connection to her mom? Like what was that dynamic like as Cilvy was really young and growing up?
I would say, especially because it was such like a village raising thing, Cilvy feels more of a fatherly affection towards her dad. But I would say it wasn't so much, I mean, like, definitely she enjoyed being around him, but, like, her mom was also really skilled in her herbalism and alchemy and is very, like, respected in the community, and taught Cilvy a lot of stuff. So I think that she had a lot of, like, reverence and respect for her mother, but slightly less of a maternal vibe. Like, I would say almost her teachers were a little bit more, like, maternally to her.
Okay.
Or not even teachers, I guess, nannies, whatever you want to call them.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, okay. So at some point then, Cilvy does... Well, let's talk a little about the hive. So we've talked about the hive multiple times. We know that the hive is off in the forest. Cilvy, we've talked about a little bit in the campaign about how, you know... Cilvy's family had their own sort of like library, not massive, but they had their own collection of like magical books and of arcana, that kind of thing that they had. Everybody here in the hive had their own little like collections. So it was a place where like magical knowledge and arcana were not hidden. They were actually shared. But like, can you tell us more about the hive? Like, what was it like physically? What did it look like, especially for a young gnome growing up? And this is the only home that she knows. Yeah,
so the actual, like, structures itself was sort of built out of an old ruin. I kind of imagine, maybe it's just because I'm playing Skyrim or Oblivion right now, but like kind of Skyrim style. Like, you know, there's still like like towers and like fortifications, but it's definitely like no longer been used for a couple decades.
Yeah, like Fort Nykel or whatever it's called.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Yeah, I was playing it today too. I got there today, and anyway. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then as far as like the surroundings, though, like beautiful forest, you know, beautiful streams running through, but like very secluded. You know, there's no towns nearby. So a lot of time spent, especially because she was one of the oldest children. And I mean, there were some who had come with their parents, but she was one of the oldest born there. A lot of seclusion, I think, was kind of how she thinks of the hive, but like in a really beautiful, majestic way.
Right. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. And there's also these like teleportation circles all around. I imagine some of them are probably, I'm not going to say new, but like maybe fixed and cleaned up, but like old construction, like runes and stuff, these teleportation circles in different places in the city that you would know teleport to different areas of Via Severia, of the country, including one that Cilvy actually goes through to get to Barograd, which we will probably get to later. All right. Cilvy then starts training. How old was Cilvy when she first started actually going to classes to start learning some magic, some of like these first cantrips?
I mean, I would say it was pretty young. Like as soon as kids started showing like magical aptitude, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like they're bringing them into the classroom specifically for magic.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, well, that is actually where we're going to start. So if you can imagine Cilvy as a young, we'll say 5.5-year-old, because when you're 5.5, that extra half is super important. Anyone who's got kids knows what I'm talking about, or anyone who knows any kids. All right, so Cilvy, you are in this old I mean, everything here is old, but still kind of new. Like some of the roof is this old stone with this old, like faded, like peeling off fresco painting on it. You can't really tell what it was at one point, but then the rest of the roof has been fixed with these rough cut logs, and it's sort of got this sort of rustic feel to it. But the floor that you're sitting in this, like, it was like this old hall of some kind, some mansion or castle of some kind. It was this big open hall with these big pillars that held up the ceiling. And now that the ceiling has been rebuilt, you're in this kind of interesting space. There are fires in braziers that are around the outside that actually give warmth to the room, as well as some light. And there are all of these long trestle-like tables that have been set up for training. You are in there. You are young. You are 5.5. There are other kids who are anywhere between 4 or 5, all the way up to 8 or 9. And you are practicing some of these, you're trying to learn some of these cantrips, these easiest spells, these things that are like the first thing that you train somebody, because they are so, I'm going to say basic, but they're complicated enough that some people will just never get them. Just their brains don't work that way.
Some bitch next to me tries to tell me it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Puncher.
That's right. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, you're sitting there, and the hive, you guys are gnomes. There are other species here as well. So you've got elves here, you've got some humans here. I don't know if the 2 grandmas and they wouldn't be there yet, because Danny the boy was supposed to be in the anyway. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out who all is there. But you are in this classroom, and there's probably about 20 other children here, actually, and you guys are all trying to get these very basic spells down. Cilvy, or I guess Sabrina, what are Cilvy's cantrips that she knows at this point? Sorry, not at this point. What are adult Cilvy's cantrips that she knows?
Well, some of them, like the static shock and grasp, that's a good one. Always a classic. Got to make it look like you were just doing a static shock. And then I think minor illusion would be another one that would be kind of just pop. Minor illusion would be a popular one to start with.
Okay, yeah. I would say you're working on minor illusion. I would say actually at this point, nobody has brought up the static shock spell at all. In fact, what you have seen here in this room with all these other people is people trying to figure out which spells you jive with, which ones work best for you that you might be able to get. And minor illusion seems to be one that you're actually kind of getting the hang of. It doesn't work every time, but you can, maybe 1 out of 3, you actually can get the spell to work. The other third...
Teacher, look, I put ears on this potato. In a butthole.
You see your teacher, who is this tall, elvish woman with long red hair. She comes walking up to you. She's got some lines of age. You know how elves, they don't age the same as other species, but the lines indicate that she is past her middle years. But she's
man, that's going to cause some choices in the future. Future Cilvy's going to be interested in some red-haired MILFs.
Well, and she walks up and you see your teacher, Jellowin, is here. And she says, "Oh, do you remember Jellowin?"
Of course I remember Jellowin.
Okay. You see Jellowin, your teacher. And she says, "Oh, Cilvy, you're doing so well. I think another month of practice and you will have this minor illusion spell down, and then we can move on to something else. Maybe Mage Hand or something or maybe a message."
A month? By then I'll be almost 6.
I know. Well, anything worth doing well is worth taking the time to do right. You are sitting there across from this other girl who is trying to get minor illusion down as well, and she just can't get it. And this girl, she is a dwarvish girl. She is a year older than you. And, so she's a dwarf, so she's short, but you're a gnome, so you're even shorter. So this girl also is like twice as wide as you. And she is just, I don't want to say she's a bully, but she's definitely got a rivalry with you. And her name is Agna.
Nice. Good name.
Yeah. Agna is, what's the best way to describe her? Agna is your rival in that when you have success, she won't talk to you. She won't congratulate you. She feels it's like your success just shows her failure.
We're kind of friends, like sometimes, but then she doesn't like want to talk to me whenever I do good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And so you see Agna turn her back to you as she continues to try to do this minor illusion.
Can Cilvy, while she's not looking at me, cast on her potato and give it a butthole?
Why don't you? Okay, I'm going to have you, because you're brand new at this. Why don't you make an Arcana check, and we'll call it difficulty 10.
All right.
Sort of middle of the road Arcana.
All right. I still have a +5 at this point, so that is a 19.
Oh my gosh. So Prodigy Cilvy, the wizard.
I'm the best butthole maker this side of the Mississippi.
Suddenly, she is working on this, trying to get this minor illusion, and the butthole appears on her potato, and she goes, wait, that's not what I was trying to do. And she like raises her hand, and then Jellywin comes over and looks, and then Jellywin looks at the potato. She says, "Very good attempt, Agna." And then she turns to look at you, Cilvy, when Agna's not paying attention, and she raises her eyebrow.
Don't look at me. I don't do shit.
That's it, Cilvy. We're gonna have to talk to your mom about your language.
Not my mom. You should talk to my dad. He's a lot better of a listener.
Oh gosh. Well, that night after this class, after you feel probably some success, right? You're starting to get minor illusion. You're starting to learn this spell. I'm
putting ears on everything. The tea kettle, ears.
You're at home and you're sitting down to eat, and your mom and dad are both there. You've got Fema is sitting at one end of the table, and you're kind of in the middle. And then on the other end, you've got Thier, your dad, and they're having a conversation. Cilvy, you're 5.5, so you don't pick up on a lot of what they're talking about. But well, actually, why don't you make an insight check? Let's just do that. Make an insight check.
All right, let's see. That is a 6.
Okay. They're having a grown-up conversation, and it looks like your mom might be a little...
Is it about me? Because if it's not about me, I'm not interested.
They have not mentioned your name once in this conversation, but you see that your mom is, she looks a little bit more, she's a little bit more riled up, right? She's like actually like raising her voice a little bit. And you can see that your dad is kind of like putting up his hands and he's trying to talk more calmly. And you see that he's starting to get a little bit frustrated. And with your insight check, you can't tell, like, are they mad at each other? Like, are my parents going to get a divorce or like what? Like you're not really sure what they're talking about, but you can tell that something is going on here at dinner that they're not agreeing on. And I think Cilvy's little 5.5-year-old, do you think she kind of put her head in the sand and tried to avoid this? Or like, what would she do in this situation? I
think Cilvy is one of those blessed creatures that has bad charisma, but doesn't care. So I think Cilvy would just say, interrupt him and say, "Mom, Dad, did you know that today I got told I did really good on my minor illusion? I can make ears like nobody's business."
You see your dad instantly turn to you and goes, "Oh, that's great." And you can see that your mom takes like a split second longer before she turns to you too and says, "That's so great, honey. You're doing really, really well. You know, it took me at least until I was 7 or 8 before I learned any kind of cantrip, any of these spells. And I worked really hard. Your grandma, she helped me, and you know, it took me a long time. So you're doing really well, Cilvy. I want you to know that you're doing really great." Cilvy does not have a very good insight right now. And if she did, she would see your mom and dad both sort of their shoulders drop a little, and they look at each other over Cilvy's head and smile at each other. The next day, Cilvy, you are back in that hall. You are all ready to keep working on minor illusion. And Jellywin comes in. All the kids are lined up. And why don't you make another insight check or a perception check?
Not really good at either, but let's do perception this time. Ooh, nat 20.
Nat 20. Okay. you see that Jellywin is... she comes in and Cilvy wouldn't know this word, but she recognizes the look. She is resigned. She is a little bit defeated looking, but she comes in, she says, all right, children, gather around. I wanted to talk to you today about sort of what we've been working on. Minor illusion has been coming along great for some of you. Mage hand over here with the older kids. You're doing fantastic. We are going to try something new. With your insight, you can tell that she is trying to put on a brave face. You've seen adults do this before during hard times or things they don't, like when they're trying to like pull one over on you kids and like, you know, because they think that you guys can't handle stuff. But we all know kids can handle stuff, right? I'm 5.5. I can handle stuff, right?
Basically 6.
Yeah, she is, I'm like over halfway to double digits. She is putting on a brave face and she's trying to hide something from you guys. And she tells you, today we are going to start working with the power of static and electricity. And then she kind of holds her hands together and you see a little bzzz of blue lightning go between her fingers. She says, does that sound good? You interested in learning that?
I mean, Cilvy's gonna throw her hand up. Like, she's excited. That looks so cool.
Okay, with your insight, you see Jellywin looks at you and smiles, but you can tell your excitement makes her sad.
Well, that's just confusing.
It is super confusing for a 5.5-year-old. And I don't think
I'll probably
Cilvy...
get it when I'm 6.
Cilvy, you would not have understood at the time. And it probably took a long time for you to actually suss this out. Probably in your teens, maybe like 14 or 15. You would have found out that there had been a debate going on amongst the members of the hive for a long time. And the debate had to do with threats from the outside. And nobody came right out and said Aeonans to the kids. But the concern was that the Church of Aeona continued to gain more and more prominence in Via Severia, and the danger that it actually was to practice any kind of arcane arts. And the decision was made. It was a very difficult decision to make. It took a long time for them to debate it, but it was finally decided that the spells that the kids were being taught, they needed some more offensive power as well, if nothing else, to teach themselves to defend themselves. But on a bigger note, the concern was there that at some point the hive might have to rise up and defend itself against the Aeonan worshippers, specifically like the Dyrenians, who are incredibly militant and very, very anti-magic, even more so than other sects of Aeona. So that is something that you would have found out. And this was kind of that moment where Cilvy's training went from lighthearted buttholes on potatoes to static shock, rub your feet on the carpet, and kill people. I'm fairly certain that static shock spell, that was the very first spell that Cilvy ever used that actually killed somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you killed the squire in Barograd with that spell.
I mean, kids deserve it sometimes, but, you know, that was still sad. I did feel bad.
The spell that you were taught at 5.5, you ended up using later to kill a 16-year-old. So, yeah, crazy. All right. Well, time moves on, and a couple of things change as Cilvy starts to
A couple
change.
things.
Cilvy, this whole time, you are now in your late teens. And this whole time, you still are not quite sure where in the world the hive is. You have seen maps. You have done so much research, because you're not just studying arcana and magic. You're also studying history, and you're studying politics and all of that. When did Cilvy get it in her head that she wanted to be, for lack of a better word, a missionary for the hive?
Well, I'm gonna say I think Jellowin might have been one of the people who inspired her, because obviously Jellowin left at some point, and I think, like I said earlier, the teachers were almost more of a maternal figure to her than her mother was, and I think that probably would have been one of the first times she really thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then as she got older, the staleness of growing up among the same, even if it is 50 kids, they almost feel like cousins, and it's a little weird to want to date, or, it's hard to imagine the rest of your life in a place like that.
Oh yeah, it's like dating a girl you go to church with. Yuck.
Yeah, nobody ever does that.
Sorry, if any girls went to church with me, sorry, but yuck. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so at this point, you're about 15, and literally 2 months before, Jellowin said her goodbyes as she went out into the world to go and recruit for the hive. How did Cilvy feel now that she's grown up and she's 15 or so, 15 or 16, and knowing that your whole life has been the hive, and the other kids that are your age, the majority of them know what it's like to be outside of the hive. Did that affect Cilvy in any way?
Yeah, I think she was a little bit lonely, because she was kind of in that gap where the kids who are a little bit more of her age tended to be born beforehand, or at least more of her maturity level. And then everybody else who's significantly younger than her, they were born here, they have each other. But she was kind of one of the first ones, so a little bit more in that limbo area.
Okay.
And so I think it was a little bit of a lonely existence.
At this point in Cilvy's life, when she's 15 or 16, has she started pushing against the kind of organization of the hive? And so I'm going to use some words here that might have a little bit of heat to them. Did Cilvy ever think of herself as am I in a cult?
No.
Never. Okay.
No,
okay, here's a question. Here's a question for you now, though, for Cilvy nowadays. Does she look back now and be holy crap, I was in a cult?
She is. I wouldn't say she would say, "Holy crap, I was in a cult," because she still really believes in what the hive is doing, and still really I think she again would sends people there, if they need to protection. I think it's a safe. She thinks it's a safe place. She feels it's a safe place.
Yeah.
That being said, she thinks it was definitely weird. As the more she sees, the weirder she sees it at being.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. I was just wondering, I as we're talking this out, I'm like, you know what? I literally just finished reading a book about a girl who grew up in...
Which one?
It's called Uncultured. It's
I love Uncultured.
You read it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I read it, yeah. So good.
Yeah. But I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, now
actually, I based the hive off of that. I read it actually a few months maybe after or before our campaign, and I was like, I didn't base it off of that, but I was like, these are some good ideas for the hive. I had already thought of that, and then I was like, here's how I'm going to kind of make it be more realistic. So yes, that's probably why it made you think of that.
Yeah, that's exactly why, because I just finished it last week. But okay, so not to get too dark or anything like that, but Cilvy's childhood was pretty okay, right? There wasn't any dark deeds
Yeah.
or anything like that. Yeah, okay.
Nothing too crazy. I would say it was really lonely, and then like really weird. Like there were definitely lots of, like I said, she was raised by a lot of people that weren't her like her parents, and I think that just kind of does something to you. And then really strict like regiment in general. Like you had rations for food for most of Cilvy's life. I mean, not that they were like starving, but like to make sure that things were running smooth.
Right. Sort of communal living, right? So everything was divvied out, and apportioned and everything.
I kind of try to imagine it as something in between, where it's like one of those things where like it definitely could go sideways, but it wasn't like, super controlling religious.
Sort of a benevolent cult or a diet cult.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. I would imagine, Cilvy, you feeling alone, and there's other kids there. There's other kids your age. There's a good like probably 20 to 25 kids that are within 5 years of your age here in the hive. It seems like there's more adults than kids for sure. You get a lot of people showing up who are, you get people who are injured, people who are, disabled in some way because of their history with being out in the world and having to deal with some of the traumas of being a magic user in Via Severia. You see people who come who are like afraid to they don't want to be touched, that kind of thing. There's all of this
secondhand trauma. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So you do experience some of that. But I would imagine, yes, Cilvy grows up knowing that this is a safe place where those people come to heal and to be safe. So yeah, I think that, I like that. For the most part, the hive was like it was a good, solid, safe place, and the people were just weird, and you were kind of lonely. Okay, let's see. Cilvy, as 16, she is spending some of her downtime. What would she do between classes? Like, how would she spend some of her alone time?
I don't know about between classes, but I think Cilvy went out and explored the forest a lot. She would never say this, but she kind of wanted to see, like, if she could find a town. Like, she really wanted to see if she could find a town that was on a map, and then, but she never did. She found lots of caves, lots of cool things, but never was able to find, like, a point of civilization to put on the map.
Cilvy also found other ruins. There were other ruins around this where the hive is built. There were other ruins of cities and castles and temples around that have all been taken over by the forest. Right, these are ancient structures. So the hive is just kind of one of many of these ruins. At some point, Cilvy, you are out exploring in the forest, and it starts to get dark, so you got to get home. Your parents worry about you being out here because it's not exactly safe, especially after dark. Doesn't matter how many spells you've got. If a pack of wolves decides to attack you, you are probably not going to do well. You're coming back, and you know that you're close to the hive, and you can see kind of through the trees, through these like thick like pine needles and stuff, you can see that there is like the glow of fire, and you know that this is like really close to the hive, like within 100 yards of the hive. Somebody is out kind of in the forest having a little bit of a campfire. What does Cilvy do when she kind of sees this fire, this little campfire off in the distance? Does she come closer? Does she kind of like skip around it? Like, what's she going to do?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody in the hive would create a campfire that close, so I don't think Cilvy's going to waste this opportunity to see what it is. So I think she would try to sneak closer, even though she's definitely not the sneakiest person.
Okay. Why don't you make a stealth check? I'll let you make it with advantage because it is dark.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay, let's see. That is with advantage. Ooh, with advantage, it's 13.
All right. You start kind of moving closer to this fire. And as you get closer, you start to hear some voices. And you hear like one that's kind of more of a masculine voice. You hear two that are feminine. And as you're sneaking closer, suddenly you feel, or you see this kind of flash of light, and then you hear some laughing, and then you kind of sneak a little closer, and you kind of peek into this clearing, and you do see some people from the hive. You see some other teenagers. You see Agna, this dwarvish girl who you've grown up with. She has learned some skills now. It's interesting because where you were learning minor illusion and you were really excelling, and it seems like, Cilvy, you've kind of excelled in anything that you tried as far as magic. Agna did not do so well with a lot of these spells. She did not do well with Mage Hand. She did not do well with minor illusion or message, but she did really well with Firebolt.
Yeah.
She did really well with, like, what's that one? The acids, the one where you throw the glob of acid, like acid splash. So she did really well with these like evocation cantrips, these destructive.
No wonder she's so popular. She's so cool.
She is cool. But you see that they're basically these three kids are just out here, and they started this fire, and every once in a while the fire starts to die, and then one of them will point and they'll say, "Fuego," or whatever they say, and a firebolt will blast out and light the fire back up again, and they'll laugh, and you can hear them talking, and they're doing the typical like teenage talk. With your 13, you can stay close without being seen and listen in on what they are saying. It starts out typical, talking about other kids in the class. You hear one person actually mention you by name, and somebody says, "Yeah, what's her deal?" And then Agna, actually, this girl you have a rivalry with, she's like, "Oh, Cilvy's not so bad. No, it's her dad. It's her dad who just doesn't get it." And then you hear the ones like, "I know, yeah, right?" And then Agna says, "I mean, it's going to be us, right? We're the ones who are going to have to take this fight out there into the world." And her dad, Thier, I mean, he's just kind of clueless, right? We're never going to get along, right? And you can hear them like saying, "Yeah," and like lots of likes and stuff, typical teenage talk. One of them even says, "Skibbity." But you hear this conversation happening. You hear these kids who have been taught now for a decade or more that the world is out to get them. At some point, they are going to have to defend themselves, and they might end up having to take the fight to the rest of the world. Now, Cilvy, your dad Thier, he's kind of the other end of that.
He really joined for the peace and love vibes.
Yeah, he's sort of more the hippie. So, as you hear them talking about your dad and calling him an idiot and clueless, what does Cilvy do in this moment?
Oh man, Cilvy's mad.
There are 3 of them, just a heads up, and they are as skilled as you, just so and Cilvy would know this. That does not necessarily mean she won't make a stupid decision because she's also a teenager, but...
All right, so Agna, which one of these boys does Agna have a crush on?
Oh, Agna has a crush on Jarthan. And Jarthan is this, he's the human here who is sort of, he was one of the first ones to like hit puberty. So he's a little bit like broader chested. He's got that natural muscle. If anywhere else, he'd be like an athlete, right? Here he's just studies. He's middle of the road skill, right? Which at this point doesn't really matter, but he's kind of good looking, but he's that first kid to get that peach fuzz mustache. and Agna, being a dwarf, she's used to like facial hair, so she really likes the attempt at facial hair.
All right, well, Agna's chill, so I don't want to do anything to embarrass her, but I don't think she should be hanging.
She did call your dad an idiot.
Yeah, that was a dick move. But, like, she's hanging out with kid. What are you going to do? She did defend me, though. So, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to do anything too crazy to her at this moment. But I also don't like these idiots. And so I'm going to make Jarthan... I'm going to use a minor illusion. And he's just going to do the longest, dankest, shittiest fart. I know you can't make smell. But you can kind of hear how wet it is.
Oh, gosh. All right. At this point, you've got this cantrip down. No problem. You cast the spell. Real quick, can you look at that spell? Is there a verbal component to it?
One action, components SM, a bit of fleece.
Okay, so somatic and material. So you don't have to make any noise to actually cast the spell.
Just the
so
fart.
you can stay hidden, and suddenly you hear this, just this nasty long fart where if it was real, he'd be changing his britches, right?
And I would love to, it lasts for a minute. So like the fart goes on for like a solid 20 seconds. Then 40 seconds later, minor illusion again, running down his leg.
Oh no. When it first happens, he's like, what? Huh? And you can see that everyone starts laughing, and they're laughing at him so loud. And he's like, it's not me, I swear. Who's doing this? I'm not really farting. And then it stops. And he's like, guys, who did that? And they're all kind of laughing. You see Agnes looking at him like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Oh my God. He's such a bop. I'm not exactly sure what a bop is. My daughter used that too.
I don't know what that means.
And then there's this other girl there who's like a pick-me girl. Which apparently that's a thing. Anyway, no, and then 40 seconds later, suddenly there's that brown running down his leg. He's like, guys, stop it! Who's doing it? And they start laughing again. And he's like, which one of you's doing it? And he starts pointing, and he is going to make a perception check and see if he can figure out where this is coming from. I said to pull up a dice roller.
What's he gonna do? Tell me he's did his pants. Honestly, that's so funny. Good job, Cilvy. I'm proud of her.
With a natural 7, he starts looking around. He's like, which one of you is it? He's like, fuck, you guys suck. And then he like stomps off and heads back towards the hive as the others are just laughing. And then they kind of go back to their conversation. And you notice that now that Jarthan is gone, that the conversation does not go back to the fighting. It does not go back to the idea that at some point you guys will need to use your powers to fight and kill.
And I think at that point, Cilvy's just going to sneak away. I think I did what I needed to do.
I think you did too. I think that was probably as good as you could have hoped for. All right. Well, very good. Okay. So then, Cilvy, you have now experienced this fear and this message of sort of us versus them and the other, and how the rest of the world is the other, sort of this need to go and help and rescue those out there in the world who might not be safe, and you want to go out there and help. Jellowin has been gone for a few months now. You weren't sure where she went. She told you that she was leaving, and she wasn't supposed to tell you guys where she was going. And as you start to get older, you start to recognize that when people leave, they don't tell you where they're going to go. And it's just kind of this whole secret.
Everything is a secret.
Everything is a secret. You don't know where you live. You don't know anything. The only things that you know about the outside world are what you've seen on maps. And honestly, now that you think about it, you're not even sure how old these maps are, right?
Oh, shit. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Well, we do visit towns occasionally, but yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, but when you visit towns, like you visit small towns, right? Like to go do some trading and stuff, you do like small farming communities and things like that.
Right. Barograd size.
Yes. All right. So, Cilvy, you are at home. Your dad, Thier, is there. Your mom, Fima, is there. And you want to go out and be this, I keep using the term missionary. I'll say ambassador instead, right? The secret ambassador for the hive. As you are sitting here at the table, having just told your parents this, well, actually, let's play it out. Let's see. What do you say to your parents?
Dad, weren't you the one who said that instead of using magic to fight, we should use magic to help? That's what I want to do. I want to bring people here who otherwise would feel trapped and would be scared to use their gift.
You're exactly right, Cilvy. I'm glad you feel that way. Yeah, we as Pahoftmas,
and if I have to cast a fireball or two on occasion, Don't worry about it.
Well, that one has been kept from you because to be fair, Cilvy, you're an amazing daughter, and I just need you to know that I really, really appreciate your insight. And you're right. We should be using what we've got to try to help people. I agree. And your mom speaks up and says, I agree as well. We should be using our powers to help people. But the world that everyone else lives in is a dangerous place. And you can see that your mom and dad kind of look at each other and they kind of stop the conversation. This is an argument they've had on multiple occasions. Mm-hmm. They try to hide it from you, but you've heard it before through closed doors.
I'm a big kid now. You can't hide from me.
Oh, now they started casting silence so that you can't hear because you're in a dome of silence. But your dad says, yes, I do think we should be using our powers to help people. Why do you say that, Cilvy?
Well, I just think that going out and finding folks who would live a life scared of their talents and offering them a place where they can be their authentic self would be, doing a benefit to the world. And if it would also be doing a benefit to the hive mother in bringing intelligent, strong minds back, I don't understand why I couldn't be part of that.
You see your parents look at each other, and then your mom turns back to you and says, Cilvy, you are a very gifted spellcaster. You're a very gifted wizard. However, you've lived in this hive. The hive is your home. You don't know anything about the outside. You've never really been to the outside. And I worry that it would chew you up and spit you out.
I mean, that might be true, I suppose, but does that mean I should have to spend the rest of my life in this forest?
She says, well, Jelowin lived amongst the people of Via Severia for over 100 years before she came to the hive. So she knows how it works. So it makes sense that she would go, right? There's been others. Back right when we first got here, there was a man named Grolin Runeglow, and he left. But he knew the ways of the world. He had been a politician. And that made sense. Cilvy, you...
Did he make it back?
He still is working and sending people to us. Make a perception check or an insight check.
Doesn't matter, because they're both 0, so that's 11.
11. You see your parents exchange a look. I'll say at level 3, and 11 is pretty good. You see your dad look at your mom, and he gives her this look, and the only thing you can determine is it's like, why'd you have to bring him up?
Okay.
She's like, he's still working for the glory of the hive, and you can tell that is a stretch of the truth.
Cilvy will say, exactly, and he's out there, but eventually we're going to have to send more people out. So you could either send me to him, Sylvie's betting that they don't really want to talk more about him, and maybe he could train me, or I'm going to have to just get my feet wet by jumping in.
Cilvy, your dad says.
That's my name, don't wear it out.
I love your enthusiasm. He says, tell you what, let's make a deal. You're 16. Let's give it 5 years. 5 years when you are 21. If you still feel this way, then I will support you. But for now, I want you to stay here, focus on your studies, keep getting more power, more skills, and then he looks over at your mom and he says, and we'll teach you what we can about the outside world, and if it's something you still want to do when you're 21, then we'll support that. And you look over at your mom, and she kind of nods too.
Do you think you could maybe teach me the flute? I would love to be able to do something to, entertain folks in the outside world.
Your dad's like, oh yeah, I used to jam on the flute all the time. As he pulls out his flute and starts doing Ya's flute. Death Row Toll style. No.
It's just as bad as Cilvy's flute originally was. That's exactly where she learned it. But he has all the confidence of a rich white man.
And then he starts teaching you. Okay, so you guys make this deal, and at one point you start practicing the flute, and then he starts teaching you some tricks to like, hey, if it's not going so well, I always just magic illusion it, or I just I just do a minor illusion and just have it play, and the trick is
that's
don't
where I
talk.
got that skill from.
It's like the trick is don't talk while you're supposed to be playing the flute. Which I'm fairly certain that Cilvy has done a time or two when she's been performing. Oh, gosh.
It just makes it more impressive for the audience.
Yeah. This is what I will say happens over the next 5 years as Cilvy is training. She starts reading more history and more maps, starts studying kind of more about the world as much as she can from books. She starts talking to other people in the hive. Some of them will talk to her about kind of their experience out in the world. Others don't want to, right? Others, it was just too traumatic. So a lot of them are saying, don't go out there. It's dangerous. It's scary. So you hear one guy say, if you see somebody in armor and a black robe with gold trim, you turn the other way. Do not give any Aeonans any time of day. All right. The only time, if you could catch one on their own, then deal with them. Just put them in the ground. The only good Aeonan is a dead Aeonan.
Thank you, George. Yep. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And don't get me started with the. I don't know. I was going to say something else. That maybe I didn't want to get too topical.
The kid's on my lawn.
Yes, there you go. So you spend the next 5 years just studying and learning all you can, and over the next 5 years, Cilvy, you see your parents who when the hive changed from sort of peaceful community safe place and became more of like a, hey, we have to start being realistic about our powers and what we might have to do. And they started actually, I used the term talking with Sabrina, with you offline. It's like when a hippie commune goes out and buys a bunch of AR-15s. That's kind of what happens.
I said slightly classier than that because we're kind of Oppenheimer style, trying to get rid of folks. So
yes, exactly. So your parents during that time, now that you look back on it, you see that there was a wedge that was being driven between them with their different ideology. And now this last 5 years of you preparing to go out there, you see that your parents actually they kind of came back together to try to help prepare you as best they can for you to go out there. But
I healed the family.
No insight check needed. They do not want you to go. Neither one of them want you to go. But you're an adult now, and so it's your choice.
And I'm going to go.
And we all know how it turns out. All right. We're going to jump ahead now. Cilvy is 21. Cilvy, you are standing in the basement of one of these buildings here in the hive. It's one that you haven't gone into very often, but you know that it is one of these buildings that has a teleportation circle in it, an ancient teleportation circle that your community has fixed up, has cleaned up, has decided to start using for some of these trips. You know that this specific circle has not been used for an ambassador before.
Nice.
You know that you are going to a place that nobody has been to before. At least not that none of the hive has been to before. You know that there are people who are close by, but you are going to be heading to a city called Barograd. And Barograd is on the edge of civilization. That's what everyone keeps saying. It's the edge of civilization, which you find kind of weird because you literally are living outside of civilization, right?
The edge of civilization is closer to civilization than we are.
Yeah, exactly. So as you are prepared, you are standing here in the bottom of this building, you can see on the ground there is this circle, and it is like a mandala, right? It's like all these intricate lines and these symbols and things, and you can see that next to it there is this small, like there on this little post, there is sort of like a little dinner bell, right? Well, not a dinner bell. It's a bell with a clapper, right? It's just a little bell, probably about the size of your fist. And it is hanging there. And you are being instructed by one of the elders of the hive. And it is this, it is this tabaxi woman. And her name is Sandra, and she is instructing you about the use of this portal. And she says, now this bell here, if you ring it, and she says, watch, and she rings the bell and there's no sound.
Wow.
She says, but on the other end, it will ring, and it is loud. On the other side, you will see a bell like this. If you ring it, we will hear it here, and we will know to come open the portal for you. Okay? So, the rule is you ring it every 5 minutes for an hour. If you don't get anything, then you wait a few hours, and then you ring it every 5 minutes again. Somebody comes in here often to check, but I need to be very clear, Cilvy. Nobody can know about this.
About the bell?
About this portal. If somebody rings it who means us ill and we invite them in through this portal, it could mean the end of the hive. You must take this information with you to the grave if need be. I hate to be so morbid, but you are going into a very dangerous place, Cilvy. Now, everything we know about Barograd says that it should be relatively safe for you. There is very little, if any, Aeonin presence there, and it's far enough away from civilization, from the rest of society, that it'll be a good place for you to sort of dip your toe in and see if this is the life that you want. But
I hope they have a good tavern so I can at least have a place to play my flute.
Well,
someplace with some good beers, some good mead. Mycelium mead, hopefully.
With no insight check needed, as soon as you say, so you can play your flute, you see her cringe.
My dad taught me.
Yes, he did. Yes, yeah, we've all heard your dad's at the drum circles that we have every Friday night. We've heard your dad's flute, and we've heard yours too. But you must take this to your grave.
Okay.
You cannot, under any circumstances, reveal this to any but a Pahaftma that you trust with our lives. Not your life, but my life, your mom's life, your dad's life. That is how you have to look at this.
Oh man, that's going to make Cilvy think. That's a thinker.
Just in game terms, the only people you have ever told about this portal were the members of the Silent Voice in Redlam.
Right, when we were getting that.
The Tiefling family.
Yeah, getting them out.
So yeah, you have, in game terms, you have taken this very, very seriously and protected it. In fact, your allies don't even know about this portal or the bell.
I mean, if we ever went back, it's not like I would hide it from them, but there's no reason to just tell them for funsies. Exactly.
Sandra says, "Are you ready?"
I think so.
You feel a hand on each of your shoulders as you feel your dad squeeze your right shoulder and your mom squeeze your left shoulder. Your mom says, "We are so proud of you, Cilvy. And even if this is too much and you come back right away, we will never be less proud of you."
Damn, well, Paul just healed all my generational trauma, so I'm good. Thanks, Mom.
And then your parents get divorced.
Thank you. Thank you for teaching me and for believing in me. And I promise you, whatever happens out there, I'm going to do good. I'm going to do some good for this world.
She looks at you and she says, I know you will. And your dad says, and don't forget your flute. And, just all else fails, just rock on. You got this.
Thanks, Dad.
All right. You turn back towards the teleportation circle, and Sandra, she runs her finger along the runes on the floor, saying some words. And after about, 50, 60 seconds or so, there is a blue glow. And you've got 6 seconds to get on that portal before it will close.
All right, Hunger Games style.
You run onto the portal and suddenly you are gone. First thing you notice, you are standing in ruins. This is a small, whereas the hive is like a city, this is like 3 blocks high, an ancient wall or something that fell down centuries ago, totally overgrown. But you can tell that at one point there was some kind of a structure here. Doesn't look like it was super huge or anything like that, but you can barely see on the ground underneath moss and dirt and things. You can see the dimming symbol, this circle, this teleportation circle. You see the light dimming and then it's gone. And if you did not know it was there, you would think that all the lines and symbols that are partially covered by dirt and by moss and stuff, you would think that it was just the natural flow of rock, right? So you're standing here, and I think the first thing you notice is...
Damn, this is even more remote than where I was. They weren't joking. This is bullshit. They sent me to the corner of the world. Just think, I'm gonna find some civilization. They can't stop me.
You see that there is a small, basically like a little stack of stones, and there's one stone missing. You know that if you reach inside there, you will feel a bell, and that is where the clapper is. That you just ding that bell.
Clapper.
And so it's kind of the little
Barely
flapper thing
her.
instead of a bell. Gosh. And they also told you that you would have to walk for at least 6 hours. And you'd have to walk southeast before you got to Barograd. So you know that you're not at the city right now, that this teleportation circle takes you close, but not right there.
All right, well, I'm used to walking.
Well, make a survival check for me,
Jesus.
please.
I'm not sure I'm great at survival. I'm definitely not. That's an 11.
11? Okay. You pop out, you see that you're surrounded by pine and fir trees. The air is brisk, but it's like one of those autumn days that is just the very end of summer, the very beginning of autumn. One of those random October days that is all of a sudden super warm again. Oh, hey, summer's back, right? That's how it feels out here today. Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful day. And here you are as you start your trek towards Barograd, having no clue as to how crazy your life would get over the next basically 5 months, 4 months.
Damn, that's such a short amount of time, too.
It is. I mean, at this point, we're maybe a few weeks before the beginning of the campaign. You were in Barograd for just a short time before the campaign started. And you were just so fresh that Barograd
was... I think I'm already a Queen Cortess of the Feywild.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. All the things that have happened, you have managed to do some good. You have spread the knowledge of the hive. You've helped out a family of tieflings who were, running for their lives. You sent them back to the hive. You met Grolin. Wait, was that his name? Grolin? You met that, Grolin Runeglow. You met him. He is the diviner in Clodvina who kind of was he kind of gave up on the hive after a while, and now he just kind of runs the temple of divination, right?
He's a cool dude, though. It's fine.
Yeah, he offered to send you home, and you turned him down, right? So I imagine that Cilvy still feels that connection to her mission, and also something so much more now as well with the Dream Team and everything else. But that's where we're going to stop for tonight. Getting to know a little bit more about Cilvy in her short, 21 years, all the things that has happened to her already.
21 and a half now.
21 and a half now. Yes. Well, very good. All right. Well, hey, thank you is there anything else you want to say about Cilvy before we end this episode?
She's the best. I love her. No.
I mean, honestly, from what I hear on Discord, yeah, I think that most people think that she is the best. Cilvy is definitely a fan favorite, and we love having her, getting to know her more. And we look forward to everything that's coming up as well. So thank you guys for listening, for hanging out with Sabrina and me tonight. And don't forget to go check out Patreon. You can listen to your neighbor's potatoes and become a Potatreon. Thank you to real quick. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Whoever said that, because I've got to credit them. I'm pretty sure it was
Chicken Too Nasty.
Chicken Too Hairy.
Chicken Too Hairy. That's right.
It might be Chicken Too Hairy now. Let me see. Where is it?
It was a great one, though.
It was a great one. Yes, Chicken Too Hairy, formerly Chicken Too Tasty. Thank you so much for the Potatreon or the Potatreon. Yes. All right. So, hey, don't forget, go leave us a review and rate us on iTunes. It helps us out. Somebody else can find us and have the same joy that you are having right now. And until we get together next time, we hope you have a great time.